Welcome to the Sage Thought Leadership Podcast. Financial professionals, let's move forward together.
Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Ed Kless, and with me today is Jeremy Almond. Jeremy is the CEO and co-founder of Paystand. Jeremy has spent the last 15 years in tech industry as a serial entrepreneur, startup advisor, and occasional investor. Jeremy has helped dozens of B2B companies drive adoption in digital commerce and is still active board member at a number of fintech companies. He's been thinking about how to use technology and innovate B2B financial services ever since. Welcome to the Sage Thought Leadership Podcast, Jeremy Almond.
Ed, what's up, man? Glad to be here. And boy, was that a mouthful.
All right, Jeremy. So tell me, why do you do what you do?
Awesome. So Ed, I'm my day job. I'm the CEO and founder of Paystand, which is a B2B payment network, a next-gen payment network that creates radically better economics for commercial companies around the world. But you didn't ask me what I do. You asked me why I do what I do. And the company is something I've thought about for many, many, many years. And here's something that I think we can all agree on. Financial services is like kind of fundamentally broken. And at the end of the day, something as important as banking, we actually believe could be better. So for me, my family was involved in the 2008 financial crisis. They lost their home. I was pretty pissed off at the banks. There was a thing called Occupy Wall Street. And for the younger folks, maybe that was a long time ago. But now even today, we look at things like, the Silicon Valley banking collapse last year, and you start questioning, is our financial system sort of built for the modern age, or is it holding us economically back? And so I think there's like a noble calling, which is to transform financial services. And for the companies we service, which is on the business side, to help them become more competitive and have better economics. So today, what Paystand really does is we're known for a new technology called the blockchain, and we are the largest commercially enabled blockchain. And then we're known for a large economic change. So we are not a fee-based service like Visa or MasterCard or Wires, but instead we believe is money is software. So for the customers we service today, we help them get their money much, much faster. We help them automate their entire process. We work in the Sage ecosystem. We're one of the great partners with Sage to be able to help them have smart driving financial services. And the thing we're probably the most radically known for is we eliminate all fees from our customers that they would pay to a bank or a card network, because we think that's punitive to their success and ultimately is an unfair tax to financial service companies that are unnecessary. And so what that means is we'll put millions of dollars back on the bottom line for our customers so they can invest and help grow their businesses to become more competitive and create a more competitive economic climate, which we think is a pretty noble calling.
5 or 6 years ago, and I can't believe it was that long ago, we saw the emergence of blockchain and Bitcoin as being some of the stories that people are thinking. Then this thing, COVID, happened and got in the way. But one of the things I remember talking to one member of the Wall Street Blockchain Alliance, he said that we will know that blockchain is really arrived when we're not talking about blockchain anymore. And so to that end, I want you to address maybe what are some of the commercial uses of the blockchain that are happening today that many people are not aware of, but in some sense they're taking advantage of?
Yeah, I think that's such an astute point, which is, when I talk to our customers, which are, a mid-size or an enterprise company that's building a manufacturing company in Ohio, we're not having a blockchain first conversation. We're ultimately going, you want to be able to get your money faster and not have to wait for checks or wires or ACH, which was built in the 70s. And so time is money. You want to be able to ultimately, do all of this sort of automation, right? So you can be more competitive, which in the blockchain world, that's called smart contracts. And ultimately, you want a lower cost of capital. And so you really care about the value propositions of what blockchain enables. And we kind of think about blockchain as the new cloud. So cloud 20 years ago was kind of a scary thing for businesses. And companies like everything from Sage, right, to Salesforce and other companies kind of proved that cloud was an enabling infrastructure to help you as a business run more effectively. And so blockchain is that way. So a company like Paystand today, we do $10 billion plus a year in payment volume. It's, I think, the largest in the space today. And so we do that to create real value on the table for a customer and less about what the technology does. The technology is just an enabler. And we're just one of a class of companies that I think are transforming financial services in a value first conversation instead of a technology first conversation. And that's the proof of the pudding, right? Like I use Netflix over Blockbuster because the technology was better. I might use an electric car over a regular gas car because now I don't have to go to the gas pump again. And so blockchain really is a fundamentally transformative thing for a CFO. And so it's really about what does it do for them, which is help them really collect their money faster, cheaper, and more automated in a new kind of financial infrastructure, and less about, what cryptocurrency are they using or what the price is. This is just, a better way for them to do business.
Can I interpret that a little bit? And this is perhaps off the beaten path, but this blockchain layer of the internet is almost really a security system more than anything else. And could it be something that the blockchain layer, I'm just using that as a placeholder word, would enable not just payments, but far more security of the internet further on down the road?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a really astute point, right? Is ultimately, when we talk about the Sage ecosystem, what is a business relationship in general, right? They're contracts with companies we've worked with for a decade, right? With invoices that get sent out based on goods and services that get delivered, and then ultimately like money that's rendered. And so really, if you think about the economic relationship for companies and how our economics work, they're really based on trust, contracts, and security at the end of the day. And so historically, that's had to be mediated by an intermediary, whether that's a bank or whether that's a card network or whatever. Or in other industries like property, you might have a title insurance, or in legal, you might have somebody who's the sort of central authority there. And what we're really reimagining in sort of a Web3 world and a blockchain world is the ability to interface directly. The Sage CTO actually talks about this, Aaron talks about this, where a financial network actually can intermediate directly between maybe the ERPs or the financial systems. And blockchain kind of takes that concept actually in a wider way and go, hey, if I owe you this money and we agree that we owe this money and we're two big companies that are working together, and there's a way to be able to interface trust, that's what the security of the blockchain does. Boy, wouldn't it be just more effective and efficient if we just, are able to actually institute that transfer, whether it's a contract, whether it's an invoice, whether it's a legal document directly. And so we're just removing a lot of the inefficient infrastructure in the middle.
And Jeremy, we have an exit question that we ask all of our guests, and that is, who is a hero of yours and why are they a hero?
Yeah, I mean, I could give you a bunch of like sob personal stories of my life, but I think that'll bore everybody. So instead, what I'd say is, in general, I'm very interested in what I'd consider polymath type people in history, because I think great innovation often happens from two, sort of different sources. So whether it's folks like Pythagoras or folks like Tesla, these are guys that I think looked at the world in a technological, invention, political, historical, sometimes even maybe theoretical or metaphysical. And so that creates a sort of level of innovation, which I think pushes the world forward. And then now, as I'm getting a little bit older, I've become also interested in the class of folks that I'd say are kind of the titans who built our original economy. So these are folks like, love them or hate them, folks like Carnegie or Rockefeller, where the business that they built actually drove, I'd say the next era of our economy forward. But then they had impact that lasted much beyond them, whether it was the social services that they were working on or their community development. And so I think a lot about like our calling and our impact on the world and moving it and creating a dent in the world in a better way, and a legacy that's beyond us. And so I hope, each of us in technology get to do that, to imagine the world not as it is, but as it could be, and then move it forward in that direction.
And lastly, Jeremy, how can somebody contact you?
Yeah, I'm pretty easy. I'm Jeremy Almond. So Almond, just like the nut, it's easy to spell for those of you who are listening. Jeremy Almond. You can find me on LinkedIn, probably a lot of business content there, or on Twitter, where you're going to find more blockchain content. And then it's fun to be on a podcast because my side gig, my day job is a CEO, but my side gig is I run a podcast called Redefine, the Redefined Blockchain Podcast, that's about bringing on real business use cases at scale from leaders, from CEOs, venture capitalists, politicians who are actually doing the real use cases of blockchain that you might not hear about. And I co-host it with another venture capitalist in the space, and it's a lot of fun. And so I'd love for you guys to visit us in YouTube and Spotify and Apple and those places as well at the Redefine Podcast.
All right. And we'll get a link to that podcast as well as your LinkedIn profile in the show notes. Jeremy Almond, CEO of Co-Founder of Paystand, thanks so much for being a guest on the Sage Thought Leadership Podcast.
Ed, thanks for having me. It was a blast, man.
Review and subscribe by searching your podcast player of choice for Sage Thought Leadership Podcast.